Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Finance and Governance Committee to order for April 13, 2021. Roll call.
Councilmember Turan,
Here.
Councilmember Basua,
Here.
Mayor Zaragoza.
Here.
Thank you.
And posting the agenda.
The agenda for this meeting was posted at the city kiosk on Tuesday, March 10th.
And thank you. Please join me to our flag and for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we have one public comment individual and Douglas Partello for 3 minutes on items not on the agenda. Douglas Partello.
Mr. Partello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Yes. Hi. Good afternoon, committee chair, committee members, staff, and public. I'd like to address the issue of Oxnard's financial stability right now, given that there's a $34.5 million judgment on the IUFs, the infrastructure use fees from the utility funds. Kevin Ripper, our CFO, seems to believe that that $34.5 million judgment is no problem as long as the pooled investments far exceed the judgment. The city cannot use any special revenue cash, including water, sewer, solid waste money, to cover the judgment. The city cannot legally transfer cash from one legal fund into another legal fund to cover the judgment. I'm wondering, does our city attorney, Stephen Fisher, realize what Gary Gillig did not? That there is a major difference in municipal law versus commercial law. The judgment was stipulated to immediately return the $34.5 million to the utility funds. The city is asking for a payment plan. We will know the answer sometime in the next 3 months. There is a hearing mid-May on that issue alone. So why in April is the city moving forward with a number of additional draws upon the general fund, like the Homeless Solutions Center, EMS ambulance contracts, and others, when this very important ruling has yet to be given? The judge can quite easily stick to his original ruling that needs to be paid back immediately. In that case, Oxnard has just over $5 million in uncommitted cash reserves and has a $34.5 million debt to the utility funds. So if my math is correct, and that judge decides that that money needs to be paid back immediately or sooner than what the city would certainly hope for, maybe in a year to 3 years, and that is certainly going to impact all of the 5-year plan, all of these other plans that are going on. So all of these various items have been stipulated in the 5-year plan, but I don't recall hearing at all that $34.5 million, which is actually $36 million. So $36 million, $4 million is to be paid back to the ratepayers, and then the utility funds get the other 32. But that still puts the city in a rather precarious financial position to be making forward all these other plans to do with money. So my concern is the city going to ask for a judgment bond and then have a loan taken out? And how will that impact the rating of the city in terms of credit and any future loans? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, our next item is the consent item, and this is the City Clerk Department, and this is subject approval of the minutes. And the recommendation is the Finance and Governance Committee approve the minutes of Jan 12, 2021 regular meeting as presented. And my understanding at that time, Madam Clerk, it was just myself and Councilwoman Basua, is that correct?
Correct.
Councilman Basua, we have the minutes for the 12. I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Turan,
Just to clarify, Madam City Clerk or Mr. Mayor, I was not present, but I believe I can still vote on this item, correct?
yes,
Yes.
Thank you very much. I vote yes.
thank you. Councilmember Basua,
Yes.
Mayor Zaragoza,
Yes.
thank you. Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Our next item is D1. This is Finance Department, the 2020 Single Audit Report and Update on the Corrective Action Plan, CAP. And the recommendation is the Finance and Governance Committee receive the 2020 Single Audit Report from the audit from Eddie and Payne, an update on the Corrective Action Plan, CAP, from staff and give authorization to forward both presentations to the City Council. And this, again, it was required by Measure M as a pre-recorded presentation. And council members, any concerns or items that they'd like to share at this time? Okay, none, okay. We do have a live presentation, so, from Eddie and Payne. Go ahead on the live presentation.
Thank you. Can you hear me well?
Yes,
right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the committee, other ladies and gentlemen who joined the meeting tonight. It's a pleasure to be here. We are going to present to you the results of the city's single audit for the year ended June 30, 2020. Is anyone going to share the slides, or should I share the slides?
Well, go ahead, live, attorney. There should be a live presentation. Yes,
Please go ahead and share your slides.
thank you.
Can everyone see the slides now?
Yes.
Yes. Mhm.
All right. So my name is Eden Casareno. I am the partner in charge of the audit of City of Oxnard. And with me tonight is Mary Maction. I will provide you with an introduction that will give a brief summary of the single audit process and also an overview of the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. Mary will talk about the single audit report findings. So this is not going to take very long, but I'd like to reiterate the single audit is a requirement imposed by the Office of Management and Budget, or OMB. Anytime there a non-federal entity spends federal dollars that exceed $750,000 annually. The ruling that establishes the audit requirement is commonly called uniform guidance. And the uniform guidance also spells out actually all the compliance requirements, such as allowable costs, allowable activities, reporting requirements, matching funds, and all types of compliance requirements like that. The single audit process actually begins with the audit of your financial statements, which are included in the city's comprehensive annual financial report. So we completed that financial audit in December 2020, and then we performed the single audit procedures in January. We completed the report for single audit on February 10, 2021. And both the financial report and the single audit report were submitted to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse in March. Also submitted in March was the State Controller's, it was also submitted to the State Controller's Office. At the same time, the city's corrective action plan was also submitted to both the Federal Audit Clearinghouse and the State Controller's Office. And I believe Tanya already provided that corrective action plan discussion. So let's go over what's in the report itself. First, regarding the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, the city expended a total of $11.1 million in federal awards for fiscal year 2020. That's an increase of almost 50% over fiscal year 2019. We identified two major federal programs out of a total 20 programs that the city had managed or administered. The two major programs are the Coronavirus Relief Fund, that was a total of $3.9 million. And also the second one is the Railroad Development Fund for a total of $1.5 million spent. In our opinion, the city complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements related to these two major federal programs. So kudos to the city team members who are responsible for managing these funds. If you remember when we discussed at our workshop on February 23rd, the single audit report also includes a report on internal controls, actually two reports on internal controls. The first one is an internal control report required by the government auditing standards. And another report is required by the uniform guidance. We offer no opinion on internal control, but because none is required. However, when we see any deficiencies, we report them to you. So that's what Mary will be discussing next. So Mary, take it away.
Thank you, Eden. Good evening, everyone. I will briefly go over the single audit report findings. I would like to start off by distinguishing between the different finding categories. Number one would be material weaknesses. A material weakness would be the most severe finding you could get. It means that deficiency could result in a reasonable possibility of a material misstatement. A significant deficiency is less severe than a material weakness. However, it is still important enough to bring it to your attention. And then we also have non-compliance findings, which indicates that the city is not in compliance with certain requirements from your federal programs. As you can see in the summary chart here below, the city only has 6 findings remaining, and all of them are categorized as significant deficiencies, which is a great thing, relatively speaking. Of these 6, only one was a current year finding. That finding is actually an IT finding or an information technology related finding. And due to its nature, we issued a separate confidential letter that was provided to the city attorney and the deputy city manager. This confidential document should have been made available to you and also the city council for review. And once you've reviewed it, please direct any questions that you might have to the city attorney or the deputy city manager, so we can assist in getting those answered for you offline. The remaining findings are related to indirect cost allocation, lease agreements, pension plans, notes receivable, and prior IT findings. I believe those have been covered in a little bit more detail by Tanya in the corrective action plan presentation. But if you have any other more detailed questions on those, we are open to give you some responses. And this concludes our presentation. Congratulations again to the finance department and the city as a whole. It is quite an accomplishment to lower the findings from our original 111 that we have identified in fiscal year 15 to now only 6 outstanding findings. So again, good job everyone. And we're here for any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it. I have one question here on the federal program. One significant deficiency that can be. Can we talk about that later, or Mary? That what is it? One significant finding, on on the federal program. What was
Yes, so you have a copy of our single audit report. That finding you can refer to 2017-005. It is actually the finding on indirect cost related to the CDBG program.
Mhm.
So it is more specifically the cost allocation plan of indirect costs that are allocated to this fund specifically, and that is something that the city has been working on to resolve, and it's currently in progress, and we plan on having this ready for testing July 1st, 2021.
And I noticed too that we didn't have any material weaknesses or any non-compliance, which is really great, But I know we have the 6 items, but my understanding that's a very, as you mentioned, very important, and the staff should be commended for that. Is that correct?
that
Thank
is
you. Thank you.
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. Actually, all of these findings that are listed here are already being addressed as we speak. So I believe there's a corrective action plan already in place,
Mhm.
and it's going forward by, in the very near future, they will all be addressed.
That's an excellent report. So we need to commend staff for that. Sherry, you'd like to mention anything? No, we're good. Staff, we're okay. Thank you, and we like excellent reports. Thank you so much, and I know those. Thank you so much, and of course those items will be are being taken care of, which is great. Council members, okay. Council member Tehran, a question.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation to our presenters. Really appreciate the information. I just wanted to ask some clarifying questions for the benefit of the public. The pre-recorded presentation that has been available for the public to view, unfortunately, if the public is viewing right now, you cannot see that here tonight because of Measure M. We're not allowed to show that live. It is available on the city's YouTube page and through the TV channels. However, looking at the YouTube page for this particular presentation, there are 20 views as of now. 2 of them are me. So I just wanted to draw attention and ask of the consultants or of Ms. Chang for the findings from the past, where we had previously 111 findings. It appears that many have been resolved to date. My question is, just so the public can hear, of those that are remaining, it sounded like we have 5 remaining and 1 new one that was mentioned in this live presentation. Those 5 remaining, can you give us an idea of how or why those findings remain, and what needs to be done to resolve them, or what a timeline looks like to resolve those?
Tanya would be the one to. Tanya, the question was, what is the timeline on taking care of those items, those deficiencies?
Hello, everyone. As mentioned by Mary earlier, I think we have a good plan to resolve the remainder findings. I think out of the 4 non-IT related findings, 3 of which should be ready to be tested by end of this fiscal year. So we're talking about, we have a good chance to resolve most of the findings before the calendar year is over.
Okay,
Great, thank you. And I would hope the public can view the presentation that was recorded, because there's a really great slide that shows the progress from 2015 until 2020, where you can see the dropping of the material weaknesses, the dropping of the significant deficiencies, and the non-compliance findings as time went on. And so where we had 111 to now be at 6, I think is commendable. And I want to thank the staff for the work on this. And thank you for taking the question. Thank you for the time, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. So again, I want to thank, staff and thank, Eddie and Payne for the report for the corrective action plan. And like you said, we're on the road to correct those items. And I want to thank staff for an excellent job. I keep getting all this good reports from different departments, but again, we commend you for your good work. Thank you so much. So this is is an item that should be then recommended to the full city council. So what's the pleasure of our staff? Council members?
I'll move the recommended action.
I will
Okay.
second.
First by Councilwoman Basua and second by Councilmember Turan. Roll call.
Councilmember Basua,
Yes.
Councilmember Turan,
Yes.
Mayor Zaragoza.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you so much. Our next item is a report. This is the fire department, and this is an agreement for Falk Mobile Health Corporation and purchase order with Sacra Medical. Recommendation that the committee recommend to the city council. Number 1, to approve and authorize the mayor to execute agreement A-8317 with Falk Mobile Health Corporation, Falk for 3 years with an option to renew for an additional 2 years, not to exceed $7,143,621 for year 1, $6,862,321 for the second year, and $6,514,727 for the third year. And of course, then $6,683,013 for the fourth year, and $6,826,999 for the fifth year for ambulance transport services. And 2, to approve and authorize the mayor to execute a purchase order for the purchase of 10 EKG monitors and 10 Stair Pro chairs using Starker Flex Pay to be placed on ambulances operated by Falk into the city. And 3, authorize the city manager to approve and execute amendments to the agreement A-8317 within the city manager's annual authorization as may be amended from time to time. And of course, this is again was recorded under measurement, pre-recorded presentation. And our contact person is Chief Alex Hamilton. Council members, any questions on this item? I have some questions, but if, okay. Councilmember Teran?
Thank you, Mayor. I believe-
Excuse me, Councilmember. I think we have one speaker on this item. Let me go ahead and get
Yes,
this.
I was just going to mention that. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's Douglas Bartello.
Mr. Partello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
You have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Committee chair, committee members, staff, and public. I just can't quite figure out why at this point you would be moving ahead with a $20 million contract and all the equipment and everything when there's still ongoing litigation going on with the county. Now, they already got their legally authorized authority to renew the 3-year contract with Gold Coast Ambulance. The county controls the countywide system. I know that Oxnard wants to extract itself from that joint powers agreement. The city council voted to not, renew that contract. And so there's ongoing litigation on that matter. The county was able to move forward and have that 3-year contract secured with Gold Coast for the next 3 years. So now Oxnard is going ahead and moving forward with their own contract concurrently with Fallick. So I'm just not sure how that's going to work when we have so many unresolved issues that are in the court system right now, that we're going to go ahead and put $20+ million out there for a contract when we have 2 competing ambulance services. And the county runs the 911 EMS dispatch. So they're going to dispatch Gold Coast. So what happens with Pellic when the ambulances are being dispatched from the county to respond to traffic accidents and the variety of calls that they receive? How is Pellic going to wait and see and hear the calls and respond on their own? And then how is Pellic going to get reimbursed for calls, and how much of a share between these two competing ambulance services in the same area, how exactly is that going to work? Are they going to arm wrestle for the transport? I mean, it's crazy. I really think that Oxnard needs to slow its roll a little bit here and just wait for this process. And I understand that Oxnard has a reason that, Alexander Hamilton, our fire chief, has given, that you feel that you need to extract yourself from the county. But that isn't a clean cut yet. That hasn't exactly, happened and a done deal. But to move forward at this point, that just seems like a lot of taxpayer money to put out there. And I have a question about, is there a guaranteed part of that contract? So let's say the contract needs to be ended early. Does Pellic get a guaranteed part of that moving forward? So those are questions I had, and I appreciate your time.
Time is up.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Teran, let me ask the chief a quick question here. Chief, where are we with the county approving the ambulance services for our area, for Area 6? And of course, as you mentioned before in your report, this is really a major effort, to contract, with the Falk Mobile Health. But where are we with the county? They're potentially wanting to service our area also. Can you share that information? And also, of course, this is a big item that we're taking into consideration. And what happens if Falk does not come through with their contract?
Mayor, thank you very much for the questions. And I'll actually, I wanted to say thank you. I'm really excited that we're hearing this agenda item this evening. And so I'll actually defer to the city attorney on where we're at with the process with the county, and also the assistant city attorney Zaragoza can also speak to some of the contract clauses that are in there. But just to reassure everyone, come July 1st, we're not going to have two competing ambulance services running around. We'll have a very orderly transition, and there'll only be one service. And for our residents, it'll be a seamless transition. So I wanted to reassure everybody of that. With that being said, I'll defer to City Attorney Fisher to speak to where we're currently at with the legal process with the county.
Mr. City Attorney, can.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief. So at the end of this month, there will be a hearing on the city's preliminary injunction regarding the county's approval of the extension to the Gold Coast contract that the Board of Supervisors approved earlier. So that is what the city is challenging right now. And so we should have some answer from the judge that's been assigned to this case well before the July 1 start date. And that's what's really driving the process here, is that the county's current contract expires July 1. The city's withdrawal from the JPA is effective July 1. And in order to effectuate our withdrawal, we have to come up with ambulance services. So we have been in this process with Falk.
And Steve, also the other question was, what happens if Falk doesn't come through with they don't honor the contract? And yes, do we have safeties items within the contract to make sure that if they default, then what happens?
So we are, Falk is negotiating in good faith with us.
Yes.
And they are representing that they're ready, willing, and able to pursue the services under the contract. Deputy City Attorney Zaragoza has been directly involved in those discussions with them. And I'd ask Jason to chime in on the specific provisions if he can summarize them quickly.
Jason?
Sure. Chair, committee members, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So yeah, so the contract, like any contract that we have in our boilerplate, includes the term and obviously, termination rights on the city's part. In terms of compensation, we have capped compensation for startup costs associated with Falk in the event that there is a delay in service at $150,000. That's at section 4.3 of the contract. And then in terms of whether or not Falk would, go forward with providing the service, we will have a signed agreement with them, assuming that this gets through committee and then council. So, in the event that there is any sort of breach of the agreement, we have all of our, standard provisions in place that would allow for, protections for on the city's behalf with regard to that. But I really just wanted to speak to the startup costs, because that could potentially be an issue if there is a delay on providing the services come July 1 in the event that there's this ongoing situation.
Jason, the question, I think the other question was that ambulances, our ambulances, if Falk is a defaults on the contract, do we go to AMR? Where would the ambulances come from? Maybe that's a really loaded question.
Yeah, and I think that's more of an operational question.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So we have contract remedies, as Mr. Zaragoza said.
Yeah.
But operationally, we have a representative from AP Triton. We have the chief and others from the fire department that may be able to address the kind of how that contingency would be dealt with operationally.
Yeah, and okay, and before I hand it over to the council member, the other question I have, Chief, is in your report, you talk about local control, and some of the concerns that we had in the past is that the areas over in South Oxnard have probably taken a tremendous amount of time for the ambulances to get to that area or to service that area, and we need to remedy that area in order to respond much quicker. And so the local control, according to your report, is probably one of the biggest benefits that we have with contracting with Falk. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor, absolutely. You're very correct there. We believe that ambulance service should be equitable across all the communities in Oxnard and indeed across the county. Currently, we don't have any control over the system, and therefore we cannot provide the most equitable service to our residents. The easiest way to explain it when you talk about local control, I oversaw the Oxnard Fire Department's response to the Thomas Fire 3.5 years ago. And so even though we were losing hundreds of homes up in Ventura, and we put as many personnel as we could to fight that fight up in Ventura, we still maintained a presence here in Oxnard to make sure that we could protect our residents here in Oxnard. The same cannot be said currently for the ambulance services, and that's where local control is so important. And so, in 2019, there were 1,200 occasions where there was no ambulances available in the city of Oxnard.
And I think, Chief,
as fire chief, that's just unacceptable.
And I think it's really important that the public understand that they're going to be protected regardless.
Absolutely.
And the Thomas Fire proved that when that happened, because you had, like you said, 60% of your people, or our staff up in fighting the fires, but we were still protecting our residents here in Oxnard.
That's correct.
Thank you. And then we'll go with Councilmember Tehran, and then followed by Councilwoman Basu.
Great, thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Chief Hamilton, for the information on this. So the presentation that was pre-recorded has 37 views for this one. I hope the public can take a chance to see it because it's a very important item that actually has incredible health implications and safety and public safety issues that come into play when we're talking about response times and services to our residents. So a couple of questions I have. The mayor did ask a few of them, which is great. Thank you for that. One question first is, have other jurisdictions in California been able to do this where they pull out of a JPA and are able to contract their own ambulance services to get better service?
Councilmember Turan, thank you for the question. And in terms of the JPA, that I believe is relatively unique to Ventura County. But in terms of other jurisdictions going out and contracting on their own with an ambulance provider, that is being done up and down the state. And so, if we can call this an alliance model in the sense that we are partnering with Falk Ambulance, that's actually been going on since, I believe, 1997 was the first alliance model, which was down in San Diego County with Rural Metro. Chula Vista, the city of Chula Vista, just recently signed a new contract with a private ambulance provider as well. Contra Costa County is probably the most well-known of these alliance models. They've been successfully doing this for over 6 years now. So certainly we are by no means the tip of the spear when it comes to creating this kind of contract and service.
Thank you. And just two more questions here. The first is, can you elaborate a little bit on how this will potentially benefit the residents of Oxnard? I know that it's mentioned in the presentation and the mayor alluded to it right now in the question he had for you, but when we look at the city as a whole and the number of ambulances that are dedicated to just the city of Oxnard, what will we see as a difference? What would the difference be if we were to go with this contract instead of staying within the county's contract? And are there any specific areas that we could possibly see this benefit additionally from what we have now?
Absolutely. So the benefits that we'll see right away is that all of the ambulances under this new system will be dedicated to 911 response. And then the other piece about that that's really important is that we'll control the movement of those ambulances. So under the current system, ambulances can go to other jurisdictions, cover other areas, do non-emergency transfers between medical facilities. All of those things we currently have no control over. And so the biggest change you will see is that we will be controlling the movement of the ambulances. They will be dedicated solely to 911 response, emergency response calls. And then we believe that any additional revenues that are brought in through ambulance transports, we'll be able to reinvest and develop new programs and new ways to serve our residents. The biggest thing I'd like to emphasize is that if our goal is to be able to have a paramedic on scene of medical calls within 5 minutes, whether it's a fire department paramedic or a Falk ambulance paramedic. The reason we want to do that is because studies clearly show that patient outcomes dramatically improve if we can have a medic on scene within 5 minutes. And so that is our goal right now. And that's going to be the single biggest difference that I think everyone's going to see. But also for the neighborhoods that are currently not receiving adequate ambulance service, we'll see a dramatic improvement in response times and a dramatic decrease in the number of ambulances that take more than 8 minutes to arrive on scene.
Great, thank you. And my last question here, well, I have another half question from that, but the speaker brought up a really great question about if the county has their own system and Oxnard has their own system, if a call comes in for emergency services and an ambulance is going to respond, will we foresee an instance where the county's contracted provider and Falk will arrive at the same scene? How will that be figured out by dispatch?
So yeah, I alluded to that earlier. It is a good question, and it is worth asking. And so I want to reassure you and the public that are watching and all of the committee members that we anticipate having the legal questions figured out well before the 1st of July. And so it will be a very orderly transition. We won't have two separate, we won't have a county ambulance and an Oxnard City ambulance. We've already spoken to Ventura County Fire Department's communication center. And so if when we start with the ambulance service with Falk Ambulance on July 1st, they will be ready to dispatch our ambulances just as they dispatch ambulances and fire resources currently. But there won't be any confusion like that. It'll once the legal questions are determined, there'll be an orderly transition.
Great, thank you very much. And just one last quick question, Mr. Mayor, just for clarification for the public, because I know this has come up before as well. This is a contracted service that we are contracting with Falk to do. These are not city employees or not Oxnard firefighters who are filling this position, correct?
That is absolutely correct. Yes. So Falk is, they will be providing all the personnel and the ambulances. And yeah, they're a contractor. So there is no city employees as a part of this, and no increase in city employees as a part of this contract.
Great. Thank you very much for answering my questions, and thank you for the time.
So Chief, just to add that really the fire department is a contract manager personally. Definitely.
That's correct. Yes. And to for committee chair and also Councilmember Turan, one of the things by having this local control over the system is that if we're not happy with the response times we're getting, we'll simply add additional ambulances because we will be in control of the system. And so that's something else to keep in mind.
That to meet the metrics, yes. Okay, Councilwoman Basua.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have any questions per se. Chief Hamilton during his presentation was really straightforward on what we're dealing with. So I thank you for that, Chief Hamilton. I have more of comments when it comes to what we have going on. Chief Hamilton stated that 1,200 occasions where we did not have ambulance available, especially for the south end of Oxnard. That is totally unacceptable. As an elected official, I have a responsibility to ensure that our residents are being taken care of. And if that means that we've got to pull away from the county and do it on our own to have local control, that is something that we have an obligation to do. So I'm more, I guess, upset, concerned with the fact that the South End has continuously we've dropped the ball when it comes to our residents. So I want to thank staff for bringing this to our attention. I want to thank staff for all their hard work. And I will make a motion to bring this to the full council for approval. Thank you.
Okay.
And I'll second that if we're finished this discussion.
I got 3 more items, and definitely you got a first and a second. But the question I want to ask the chief is, you talk about response metrics. I think in your report you mentioned about that we're going from 8 minutes to 7.5 minutes. That half a minute, can you share? That's very significant as far as somebody having a stroke or a heart attack or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So we believe that we can continue to improve that response time, but based on the deployment model that we've built, we feel very comfortable that we will be able to lower the minimum standard from its current 8 minutes to 7.5 minutes, and we will continue to work to improve that response time.
And I know that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say to reassure Councilmember Basur is not only will we make sure that there is a presence in the South End for our ambulances, we have also built deployment models to provide assistance to our surrounding communities. So I speak of Port Wainimi, Nyland Acres, and El Rio. If we end up covering those areas, we will have adequate ambulance service to also cover those jurisdictions as well. And one of the things that we will make sure is that We will obviously help our outside communities and other areas of the county, as we do now with fire protection services. However, we'll always make sure that we're never out of ambulances within the city of Oxnard.
That's a mutual aid between the agencies.
Yes.
But I think, Councilman Basua, in fact, when I talked to the chief, and the services we're going to have is Oxnard, Hueneme, El Rio, Naval Base Ventura County, and also Nyland Acres and other unincorporated areas over down to the county line on Highway 1. Just for information. So it's a lot of area. And the last question I have, Chief, is I understand that just either this evening or tomorrow, that San Diego County is now in the process of approving the Fox ambulance service. Is that correct?
That is correct. In fact, the San Diego City Council just approved Falk's contract this evening to provide ambulance service for the city of San Diego.
And also, my understanding is that Falk is an agency coming out of Denmark, and it's provides service across the United States, South America, Brazil, and most of the southern states in the U.S. So they have quite a few ambulances throughout the world, for that matter.
Absolutely, they are. I believe they are the largest ambulance company in the world, and probably the second or third largest ambulance company in the United States. They do a lot of 911 response in Orange County, San Diego, LA County, as well as up in Northern California in Alameda County. So they are a very reputable company, and we're very pleased to be able to be working with them.
Thank you, staff, and thank you, Chief. And we had, I'm not sure if Michael Gorman do you want to share anything? I see him there on the, okay. If not, then our item here is that the recommendation that the committee recommend to the city council that we recommend item 1, 2, 3 as per the report, to recommend to the city council to send this to the city council. So we have a first by Councilwoman Basua and second by Turan, Councilmember Turan. Roll call.
Mayor Zaragoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Basua,
Yes.
Councilmember Turan.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0. Thank you.
Okay, council members, item E, excuse me, any future agenda items for this committee, council members? No, okay. So then this is the last item. So with that last item and all the items completed, we're adjourned. Thank you so much. And our next committee comes in at, what is 8? Oh, let me see. 6:45.
6:45.
So we're adjourned. Thank you.
Please hit the gavel.